Welcome to the Wellness Project with Des. I'm your host, Des, a mental health therapist and holistic wellness coach. On this podcast, I bring you conversations with experts in mental health and wellness, along with powerful firsthand stories from those who have navigated their own mental health journeys. Together, we explore practical tips, tools, and strategies to support your well being, offering hope, encouragement, and inspiration along the way. I'm so grateful that you're here. If you enjoy the show, I'd love for you to take a moment to leave a review on iTunes and rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify. Your support helps the Wellness Project with Des to grow, bringing even more incredible guests and valuable insights to our community. And make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a thing. Enjoying the podcast? Stay tuned until the end to find out how you can support the show and ways we can work together. Now let's dive in. Hello, thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope that you've had a great last 2 weeks. I hope that things are going well for you. You are listening to episode number 197, and on today's episode, I am speaking with Karen DeLoach. Karen is an artist, an art mentor, and a creativity specialist, and she is talking with us today about the healing power of creativity. Karen is passionate about this because, as somebody who works with a lot of people in different creative capacities, she saw firsthand how powerful creativity could be for emotional well being, mental health, physical health. She sees these benefits in the people that she works with, and she saw this in herself as well. Working with kids and teens, I see how creative that we innately are in all different ways, in all different capacities. But as we get older, it seems like a lot of us lose touch with those creative sides of us. And Karen is going to speak with us about why that is and how we can tap back into that creativity and how it can really benefit us and how we can experiment and explore and find ways of being creative that light us up. Because we're so busy and we have so many responsibilities, so many obligations, a lot of times creativity gets put on the back burner. It's seen as something that's like a nice to do, if I have spare time, if I have spare energy. It's like this spare thing in our lives. But creativity is such a necessity. It's so important to who we are, to express ourselves in different ways and to tap into different parts of ourselves and our being. I really enjoyed this conversation with Karen. I think it's a great conversation, and I hope by listening to this conversation that it inspires you to get creative, to experiment, and tap into those creative parts of yourself that you haven't explored in a while. Again, thank you so much for being here. Help me welcome on Karen. All right, everyone, I am here with Karen DeLoach. Karen, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a treat. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. I am so excited about this conversation because we are talking all about creativity, how it helps to improve mental health and wellness. And so, before we get into all of that good stuff, I would love if you could take some time to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, share your story with us, and maybe how you got into this field, how you discovered the healing power of creativity.
Well, thank you for asking that. Yeah, I come from a creative family. My mother's father was an immigrant from Norway and played what he called his fiddle. But in World War II, he was playing in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. So he was raised to be a musician and be very, very talented at it. Unfortunately, he couldn't use it as a career. He was a brick mason most of his career. My father, an Irish immigrant family, was a great storyteller. He had that gift of Irish gab, I guess you could call it, and was on vaudeville. And my grandfather also performed. So there was in my blood, both sides of the family, this desire to create and be creative. You don't think about that when you're a child. You just be yourself. And I was directing plays in kindergarten in the playground. This monkey bars is a spaceship, and you're going to be an astronaut, and you're going to rescue. So, those things were going on all my life. And eventually I did go to film school, but not till my 50s, believe it or not. I did go to school for the arts and theater. that was what I loved doing, and went to graduate school for the arts as well, for sculpture and ceramics. So it's been my life, and I got my master's so I could teach. And I found out I absolutely love teaching. My one of my grandmothers was a teacher, so that came into it. Seeing other people develop their own skills became part of the joy of my life also. But something started happening. So to answer that part of your question, I saw healing happening. And I didn't understand anything about the brain. I didn't really understand at that time what was happening. I just could see it happening. As a homeschool family, we had homeschool students, and some of them had autism or dyslexia or ADHD, even in my own family. And I could see something really healing in them and happening when they would connect with the arts. Even if they were struggling in their academic classes, getting success in the arts. I even enter their work into a youth art competition, and they would start winning ribbons and winning money even. And that kind of success gave them the courage and the confidence they needed to maybe have to deal with some of the compensation that was required to pass their more academic courses. So I saw that happening, when we were all working on helping our own children. My children are all creatives, of course. No rocket scientists among the group. Writers, musicians, singers, writers. And so the challenges of academics were in our family for sure, and finding manipulative ways and creative and innovative ways to get concepts down wasn't in the normal path for them. And so that's why we chose to homeschool. Then I also had adult students that would remember when they were children how much they loved to paint or draw, and they got discouraged, or no, you can't make a living at that. But then they would take my classes. I'd give them free classes if they had their child in my classes, and they would rediscover the talent that was in there and start bringing training to it. I didn't even know then that serotonin is being released, that they're finding joy in the process itself, even if they don't feel like they're wonderful at it. That sent me on a journey, especially, since the late 2020s. What is going on in our brain? What is actually happening? Why are the arts so powerfully healing and bringing so much fulfillment in people's lives? So I started researching and finding the truth to it. And I was blown away because I had seen it in practice as an artist and art teacher, but then finding out that there's scientific proof that it actually is because of your brain chemistry was exciting.
Wow, yeah, that's really amazing. And I just love hearing your history, how your family history has influenced you so much in your present. That's so amazing that you had so many creatives in your past.
Yeah, that was fun. And it's the kind of thing, at least I didn't have parents saying, "What are you going to do for a real job?" Because so many people I talked to had experiences like that discouraged them from pursuing maybe singing or dancing or writing or in the visual arts or dramatic arts. And to be honest, it is difficult. It's not easy in our generation in our culture to make a living at these things. It's a very small percentage of them that do. But I can tell you that that doesn't stop us because we can't help ourselves. It's in us and a drive. And so when I started understanding that, I know I'm simplifying that our right hemisphere is about the creative, but the truth is that there is such a great center in all of us for imagination, intuitiveness, creativity, that even though maybe only 2% of adults identify as artists, we all have this incredible potential wired in us, and we were born that way. Every study I read, they may not understand, these scientists, why it works. They just know it does. Healing, restoration, emotionally, mentally, even physically. And I've got some great stories that I can share with your audience if you'd like me to tell them.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And just a quick note, I think that it's important for people to understand that just living in a capitalistic society, just as you said, we think of, oh, if we have a talent or we have this inner drive or a part of us that's creative or wants to be creative, we often are pushed to just monetize everything. And you don't have to, right? We can just page for fun or write for fun or draw because it lights us up. I mean, there's endless ways to be creative. creative, right? But we don't always have to be good at something to do it. We don't have to monetize something for it to be of value. And like you said, it impacts our mental health and wellness so much. And that's just a benefit on its own, that we don't have to be good in order to do something or to sell a talent in a way. We can just do something for the simple joy and benefit for our mental health.
Absolutely. Someone like Vincent van Gogh, who most of us know at least who he is, and he suffered from mental illness, and his brother did support him, but he was driven to do art that, and yet he only sold one painting in his lifetime. Now he did die, in his late 30s, so he wasn't very old, but the point is, on any measure of their culture, he would not have been considered a success or a successful artist, and yet almost everybody in our culture knows who he is now and loves his work. And he's considered one of the masters of Western art, especially, the Impressionism era in the late 1800s. So exactly as you're describing, what is success? It's something that we can think about with our own lives. But here's a couple of things that I found to be fundamentally true, that if we can remember back to when we were 5 and 6 years old and think about what we loved to do. Did we love, like me, doing storytelling in the playground? Did we love spinning and dancing? Did we love drumming? One of my children, everything was a drum. It didn't matter what it was. Still is. And of course, ended up a musician. But, it's a key to what is still in you, no matter how old you are, whether it's something you were able to pursue, because the right side of our brain, this center for creative life and imagination and intuitive and inventiveness, is also very sensitive, driven by the five senses. It's tuned into our deepest parts of our soul, but it's also extremely sensitive. So that sensitivity can be wounded easily. And so many of us were wounded very young when we were pursuing these fun things that we loved. Oh, you're too clumsy. You can never dance. Or you sing like a duck, whatever criticisms were there, whether they were spoken by a parent or a teacher or even a peer, they go deep. Those words, I mean, that little rhyme, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Hello, that's a lie. I don't know where that came from, because not only do these words hurt us, they can stifle us and they can keep us from pursuing things, like you said, just for the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a story I always remember. One of my professors in college told this story that his mom was trying to be a hairdresser and she loved it. She loved doing hair. And she really enjoyed whatever it's called, beautician school. And one of her teacher told her that she would never be a good hairdresser, that her styles weren't good, whatever the criticism was, and she dropped out and she didn't fulfill that dream, that passion that she had. So other people's words can
Yeah.
absolutely impact us and really stifle our passions.
Yeah, I was a painting major in college, and I had had really good instruction in drawing and loved drawing. So I went to college with pretty good defined drawing skills. However, I didn't know how to paint. So I was really excited about learning how to paint. Well, when I went to school, all these professors had been to school during the abstract expressionist era. They just didn't like my work. All right, they used four-letter words to describe my paintings. I like painting people. I like painting portraits of landscapes and people. And they were completely discouraging of me of having any talent whatsoever. So much so that they convinced me I was only a three-dimensional artist. So I went to graduate school in sculpture and ceramics, which I still love. But there was that place in me I really wanted to paint. But I believed them. I came into agreement with them. They were saving the world from another bad painter, is what I believed. But I kept trying. I got married, started having these beautiful little baby boys, and I wanted to paint them. They were so cute. And I'd get about halfway through, and really, truly, I got to the end of my skill level, and I would give up. I remember moving and seeing just canvas after canvas of unfinished paintings. I was that convinced by their unkind words when I was 19 and 20 years old that I couldn't paint. But fortunately, Praise God, I met Bob Brown, who had been to the Chicago Art Institute, where they actually taught people how to paint and draw. And he taught me all these things of the foundations of how to paint. Instead of just, here's the canvas, here's the paint, go for it, do it, what's inside of you, put it out there. It didn't work for me. It works for a lot of people, but it did not work for me. So learning those skills and then being able to develop them changed my life. I started being able to complete my paintings and work past the humps in my skills and develop the skills that I needed to become even an award-winning painter. But it not only improved my painting skills, it also made me a better teacher. I have a how to paint book, a how to draw book. I teach people those fundamentals that they can then use to do whatever is in them to do. I have a subscription group of people who, a lot of them are my age and some of them are young, middle ages, just whoever wants to learn how to paint, how to draw for their own desires, not for any other reason, even monetary reasons, just for the love of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have so many questions, so many comments, but I'd love to. I don't want to get off track. I want to hop back to where you said you were going to share some stories that you had. I would love to hear those. And then just, I'm writing notes because my brain is just going crazy with questions and comments I want to dig into. This is such a fun conversation.
Thank you. Well, one I wanted to share was very dramatic, and it's really kind of the story that sent me on a very big journey of discovery and reading research. Is this young man who came to my studio just completely discouraged because he was one of the ones I'm talking about that was ADHD and dyslexic. He was not thriving in his academics, and his mother, who was wonderfully gifted in finding all of these tools to help him, was completely discouraged because he wasn't able to engage. But in the studio, he just came alive, especially with sculpture, but even drawing and painting. And when I entered his work along with some of my other students, he would start winning awards. As I was describing, it just changed his whole attitude about who he is as a person. He's not identified by these limitations or struggles that he had with learning. He could then embrace what his mother was bringing to the table for him, and he graduated from high school. And when I met him, there was no expectation of that being possible, believe it or not. So that really set me on fire for what the arts can do. Another experience with one of my students who also had thrived in the studio, winning an award, best in show in this youth art contest, not just first place in his age group, but best in show, when unfortunately tragedy struck and he got a brain infection that caused a stroke and paralyzed him on the right side of his body. So here he was, 18 years old, hardly expected to live in the hospital. They saved his life. They took off his skull and gave him a plastic skull. So he left there 4 months later after all the therapy that they did with him. I mean, they've continued to do therapy on him, but when he went home, he was using a walker to drag the right side of his body. He couldn't talk and he couldn't use his right hand or leg. So his mom brought him back to my studio and said, "Okay, let's do this." And I said, "Well, you know what, David, you've got your left hand. I use mine. You can use yours." And I mean, just that fast, he was drawing and painting and sculpting left-handed. Changed everything in his life. Next thing you know, I get a call from his neurosurgeon. He said, "I've never called anybody's art teacher before. What are you doing with David? Because he's getting healing on the right side of his body." I was like, "What? I'm an art teacher. I'm not even an art therapist. I'm teaching him art, just like he knew before." And he said, "Well, don't stop. It's working." And to see him now, would have no clue the young man has a plastic skull. Not that long ago, he couldn't even talk because he started being able to talk. His right hand isn't curled up in a ball. He can use his right hand. It's not as strong as his left hand, but it proved that he could learn to write. He could learn to do things left-handed, and because he did it so fast. So then, as I started doing research, finding out that when you utilize your right brain, it's also engaging your left side and you're building neural pathways. And those neural pathways create brand new ways of thinking. They bring solutions. So here's another story, and this one is from the research I did. Singing in the shower. Okay. People like me that got told as a kid you can't sing, love singing in the shower, in the car. Nobody can hear you. Traffic doesn't bother me. I'm singing along. Well, it turns out as you are using your voice to scrub a dub dub in the shower, perhaps, you're not thinking about work or solving problems. You're just getting clean and doing your business. You get out, you feel good. You don't realize as you were singing, utilizing the right brain, left brain together, you building those neural pathways, you are also releasing serotonin. You've heard us talk about that. It's the happiness chemical. So you're happy, and all of a sudden, an idea pops in your mind. Maybe it is a solution to something at work. Maybe it's something in a relationship or thought you hadn't had before that you don't realize and put together. It was singing in the shower actually creates more brilliance and brings forth more solutions in your life. It's like, what? That's so cool.
Yeah, these are really powerful stories and examples. Do you have any other examples or ways that you see that you're seeing with the people you work with of how creativity can improve someone's mental health, their wellness? I know a lot goes into, with confidence, but what else are you kind of seeing? What are some other
Well,
examples or
this in
ways?
this case, it was an adult student who was really talented in ceramics. She was so good at making little tiny beautiful things and just I was encouraging her and we were really just enjoying seeing these things happen for her. When she came to my studio one day crying, saying, I've just been diagnosed with late stage cancer, given 6 months to live. Well, we cried together. Then I had an idea. Jan, in 9 months, I have a big room installation show I'm preparing for. I'm making hundreds in pieces and I could use your help. She's like, Karen, I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 9 months. I said, look, you'll leave a legacy for your family. If nothing else, it'll distract you. She went through all the radiation and, chemotherapy, surgeries, reconstruction. But in that next 9 months, she would come to the studio and we had a blast. We would solve problems like what do you use to make dark chocolate versus, light chocolate? The show was called Taste and See Sweet Shop, and it was all porcelain goodies, cakes and candies and cupcakes and cookies. And I made all the trays and cups and created this whole room to look like a real chocolate shop. And guess who was there 9 months later, helping and enjoying the accolades that were coming our way, but Jan. So not only was she there 9 months later, she went into remission, and it's been a few years now. She's actually cancer free. She could have laid down and died in 6 months. Instead, she chose to distract herself, to find something beautiful to do, enjoying, laughing, having fun, not thinking about what was going on in parts of her body. And I believe really made a difference in her recovery, was engaging in the arts.
That's really amazing. And just knowing the impact that the arts creativity makes on people, what do you say to people that get those criticisms or feed into those criticisms or maybe those perceived criticisms, those thoughts that I'm not good enough, I'm not a good artist, I can't paint, or get criticized that they're not a good painter, I can't write, I'm not a good writer, and it holds people back from engaging in those parts of themselves that they want to express that are creative. They stifle them down because they don't feel good enough.
You're absolutely right. It is a huge barrier. And pretty much almost anybody in the arts or out of the arts who've considered it have gone through those kind of challenges. Or I call it the paralysis of perfectionism. If it's not perfect, it's not good enough. Or I will never, as I believed about my own painting for 10 years, I'm not a painter, I'm not good enough. It really did stifle me. And they said out of those 5 and 6 year olds, 98% of them are creative geniuses, but only 2% of adults identify as artists. Where's the rest of us? What about everybody else? It's in there. It was in there when you were 5 and 6. It's still there. And I know they're having success with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, other kind of mental issues through engaging in the arts. One of the studies I read about had to do with soldiers coming back with PTSD. They've got physical injuries they've been able to deal with. They've had some therapy, but they were still not thriving. Well, one summer they decided to put these soldiers through, this was at Walter Reed Hospital, which is the foremost military hospital in America. They did a study one summer not that long ago, and they put these soldiers through these different regimes. And at the end of the summer, they had so much success, and they interviewed them and said, "So, what was the best part of this summer?" Overwhelming, these soldiers said the arts, doing art. That blesses me because they're not people saying, "Oh, I've always, necessarily said I always wanted to be an artist." They just found the healing working with their hands, working with their, imaginations, brought that kind of relief that they were struggling with to overcome not just PTSD, but other mental challenges that they were having. It's not a cure-all. I'm not pretending it is. It's just one of the tools that can be in our toolbox for bringing us into the place of fullness and restoration and wholeness and wellness. And what is wellness? Well, it's when all those parts of us are working as good as they possibly can, right? And I'm in my 70s, and I don't accept that just because I'm a senior citizen that I'm going to be in decline. It's been since I've been in my 70s, I've started a new business. I'm working, doing new things online. We didn't have computers when I grew up, right? So it's all been some steep challenges. And I'm saying these challenges are good for our brain, good for our body, good for our emotions. They help our self-esteem. They help with stress relief. There is incredible benefit of just taking your pet or taking a loved one or a child and just going for a walk and noticing, especially this beautiful time of year or whatever is around you, noticing, letting your senses smell and taste and hear the birds chirping maybe or whatever's going on around you and enjoying the moment. It's engaging left brain, right brain. You'll find some problem solving. Or maybe if you bring along a journal and just can make some notes of some ideas, and you've always loved poetry and just some ideas, some sentences came to you, or a sketchbook and you just saw these kids swinging and just got inspired. And I know people that do recordings. Sometimes they'll just bring your phone has a recorder mode and just say some things that come to mind in that time of you just resting your brain, letting your body move and be in peace with yourself in that moment. It brings such amazing wellness to us.
No, I really love that. And that was actually one of my questions was if somebody feels like they're not creative, how can they start to tap into their own ways of creativity, their own ways of self-expression? And I think those are really great examples just to kind of slow down, maybe bring a notebook with you, just record because like we were talking about before, there's so many ways to be creative. It's not just what we think of, right? Painting, writing. There's so many different ways to be creative, and everybody has their maybe own unique way that resonates with them.
It's true. And that's why I've talked about going back to 5 and 6. What did you love then? You're going to be good at it now. I mean, I took a dance class last fall with a friend, doing line dancing and, movement. Those of us that are ADHD, we just love movement. We're going to always want to be so you should have seen and heard 50 women in this room foaming with our boots at the same time. It was so fun, we just learning these routines and doing it together, and oh, we were laughing. I mean, there's no pressure to be perfect. And they did have a performance at the end, but I mean, just a participation thing. But they didn't have to do it. It just was fun doing that kind of thing. So maybe if movement and dance was one of your things, there's ways to do it. We have so many opportunities in our YouTube, internet ways to find teaching. That's why I've got an online class of all ages to do the arts, because these are mostly people who had other careers, or are younger and want to learn more about the arts. There's just so many ways to do that. That you were talking earlier about I'm not good enough. And that's something that had really hurt. People have been hurt by words. That's one of the things I create. This is a safe space wherever I'm teaching, whether it's a studio, a classroom, Zoom or, online. This is a safe space. This is a no criticism zone. I know my teachers weren't intending to ruin my life by telling me how bad my paintings were. but they had a lot of influence on me. And I had to find a way to overcome those negative words. So if it's negative words that are in your heart that someone said, you know, you can't sing, you can't dance, you can't draw, believe it or not, I had somebody tell me that in kindergarten, the teacher ripped her paper up in front of the class because she colored outside the lines. In second grade, her friend says, let's color. And she said, I can't color. So she's 7 and she thinks she can't color because of this criticism. You just want to say, what are you thinking? Don't make these children sorry that they're trying something new. I mean, thinking outside the box kind of is kind of the point of being creative. And that's the more we engage left brain, right brain, the more creative we get, the more brilliant we are. There's so many ways, and I'm happy for any of your listeners that want to see a list of 50 ways that you can be creative. We've already talked about a few of them, even taking a walk, being creative. Singing in the shower, in the car is actually good for your brain. It's good for your emotions. It's just so exciting because the benefits are not contingent upon the excellence of the work.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think also a part of it too is that creativity, obviously, if you're like writing by yourself or painting by yourself, right, that's different. But I think a lot of these things, like you were talking about, like a pottery class or something, or like a painting class, even on Zoom, I think that a lot of these creative things, like even I don't go consistently, but I try to go to writing groups and where we kind of like write together. And I think just doing those things in community adds this extra layer of healing too, because we heal in communities. So I think a lot of creative things like being a part of a play or a school play or something like that, like you said, dance classes, we're with other people. It gives this other opportunity for healing as well.
I have a really good example of that. I had the opportunity in 22 to go to Uganda with a small missions group to a church that rescues children from the streets, literally the streets. And they raised them up there. The pastor really wanted them to be engaged in more arts and even theater and filmmaking. They did a lot of theater stuff themselves. So they were going to have a big talent competition that I got to spend 3 days watching incredibly talented young people perform and have to choose with two others, the best. But we connected on such a deep level as I saw the hearts of the people rescuing them and then these young people, because some of them are now in their upper teens or they're even, older than that, and the way their lives have been changed through being rescued. We figured out because they were able to get some internet. Most of the time they have their internet, and we started a film school together. We started in October of 22, and we're working now on the script for our fourth film. We've been able to get them some equipment, because when they're on location, they don't have electricity. I mean, their stories, and I've been able to get their stories from some of them. We don't want to hear these stories. We need to hear these stories. Well, something else started happening with them. As I asked them afterwards, how did, doing this, acting in this shoot, or maybe they were one of the camera people, or they did costumes, or they were stage managing, or whatever part they played, either in front of the camera or behind the camera, that they were creating, like you were describing, community. They're creating their film school, our film school group. One after another, I was in tears as they described how different their life is. I can do something. I can do something creative, that they not only have had their lives changed, but through these films that they're creating, they can make a difference in other people's lives. You just see their faces light up as they describe how it feels to be part of this. We really have this incredible life that we can live that can include every secret desired dream of whatever creative thing is still available, and it can make a difference and leave a legacy to others, our family, and to others when we do this.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. Karen, this has been so amazing. Do you have any sort of last words of wisdom or advice for our listeners that want to tap into their creativity or overcome any barriers that are holding them back from their creativity?
I thank you for giving me this opportunity. But yeah, I think, as you're describing people's hindrances because inside they don't believe they're good enough, I'm just here to say, as a teacher, what I've seen, create your own safe space, have grace for yourself in the learning process. Try something new, but then say, how would I treat somebody else if they were just trying it for the first time? What would I say about it? Because I don't let criticism, even my college students, I saw them thrive as they weren't allowed to have any criticism because their criticism is mostly going to be about themselves. You can't allow that to happen if you want to let your right brain, remember, it's sensitive. It will do you such wonderful things as you tap into that brilliant imagination and intuitiveness and inventiveness from that side. You have to let it not be under the what I call critical bullying, which is the left brain can be the critic, and we can strive for excellence without being critical. So that's my encouragement to people to try it, whatever it is. Enjoy the learning curve. Say, you know what? I'm a student, I'm learning, and it's fun, and I'm just going to go with it.
Karen, thank you so much for this conversation. I would love if you could share where everyone can find you.
Oh, please do. If you want to participate in the visual arts and join our subscription group, we meet on 2 out of 3 Tuesdays, and you can reach me at karendeloachart@gmail.com. I also have a website, karendeloachart.com. So pretty easy.
All right, perfect. And I will have those in the show notes. Everyone go check out Karen. Karen, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation.
My pleasure. God bless you and yours.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. For detailed show notes, go to accordingtodez.com/, and then whatever episode number this is. So again, that's accordingtodez.com/episode number. If you'd like to work together, you can schedule a free coaching consult call, or you can join my Mindful Monday support group. Links are in the show notes. You'll also find a curated list of books written by or recommended by my amazing podcast guests on my Amazon storefront, so be sure to check that out. If you loved this episode, share it and tag me on social media. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Wellness Project with Des. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment. For more wellness resources, you can visit my website, accordingtodez.com. There you'll find wellness blogs, expert interviews, and a wide variety of digital products like ebooks, audio meditations, and downloadable journals to support your mental health and personal growth. If you gain value from this podcast, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/The Wellness Project with Des. Your support helps the podcast to grow and allows me to continue bringing you incredible guests and valuable content. While you're at it, join my email list to stay in the loop on everything I have available for you. As a thank you, you'll receive a free downloadable coloring book with positive affirmations. I'd also love for you to join my Facebook community where we dive deeper into each episode with discussions, journal prompts, reflections, and mental health and wellness content. It's a supportive space, and I'm there daily. Come say hi. The link is in the show notes. And don't forget to check out my Redbubble shop. The Wellness Project by Des, my collection of mental health and wellness products, is designed to uplift and inspire. From fun and uplifting apparel to motivational notebooks and bags, you can browse the collection at my Redbubble shop and be sure to favorite my store because I'm always adding new designs. And if you have a custom idea, feel free to message me. I'd love to create something special for you. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be back soon with another episode, and until then, I hope you have a calm and peaceful week.